spent 9 years at the Ospreys. How difficult a decision was it for you personally, for your family to move across, or for you to come across the bridge and work at Bristol?
The first meeting with Andy Robinson was the one that probably hooked me a little bit. I've always been involved in my jobs at the start of ventures and seen them through and help develop and hopefully become successful in them, and the Ospreys was one of those. And I just saw the opportunity afforded by Bristol Rugby to be part of something special, and Andy sold that to me. Chris Boyd did then. I asked for a further meeting with Chris, and I think, you know, it was a fairly easy decision. The fact that it's quite close to South Wales and I have a young family and they didn't want to move too far was important, but ultimately it was the project, the Bristol sport and the Bristol Rugby project that, and working with Andy Robinson, that got me hooked.
I remember vividly when you came in after those 2 heavy pre-season defeats prior to the 13-14 season, and you came out and talked to press after the Exeter game and almost seemed shocked at the standards and how much needed to change. What was going through your mind then?
I had some mixed emotions, really. I was quietly pleased that we had a benchmark. I think, you know, Andy and I discussed those friendlies against Bath and Exeter as being top games pre-season to really set our own benchmark as to where we actually were. And I think just as important to show everybody else exactly where Bristol Rugby was. And when I came in, there was this misnomer that Bristol is some traditional club that has a God-given right to be in the Premiership, and quite frankly, I didn't think it did. The standards were poor across the board, conditioning, skill-wise, backroom staff, off-field staff. You know, they were functioning as a championship club, mid-table championship club. So that was a realisation. So I was quietly pleased that was the case. Never happy losing, don't get me wrong, but it set the tone for where we needed to go in many facets, and it sort of lent itself to a blank page, really, in many respects. And that's what I saw with Bristol Rugby, an opportunity to take it forward, and hopefully since then we've done that. We've had a few stutters along the way, you'll always get that, but we're making progress, and there's a realisation out there with the board and Steve and the supporters and the stakeholders that that's the case.
So 14 months on, how close is this playing group, is this backroom staff to a level that you would be happy with?
It'll never be close. And I think as coaches we have to be like that. You have to strive for excellence and wanting more. You know, I'm sure Toulon are the same. You know, they're 2 times European champions and are still demanding more, still signing more players, you know, striving for further excellence. And somebody like me, I know Andy, we're like that, we're that sort of animal. And I think that's why we're in the jobs that we're in. Having said that, we've made strides, certainly with the playing group that we had left from last year and the signings that have come in, that it's much more like it. We're still a long way away. You know, there's still an evolution to go on in the squad and in the backroom staff, and I think we've made some strides there, on the field, off the field, the introduction of Mark Bennett and Danny Wilson, and what that's done to the other members of staff in terms of a shift in realisation and improvement has been, you know, almost exponential, and that's only going to get better.
As someone who, while at Ospreys, sort of took sole charge, was at the helm, how have you found the dynamic now of coming in and working alongside someone else who, you know, both of you are used to being in full control, and that must have been, you know, an interesting dynamic?
We talked about this before I took the job, and Andy's a very hands-on sort of fella. You know, he's a great coach, he's a good teacher, and he loves to be on the field, and he is on the field. He's been excellent this year in so much as he's really assumed the director of rugby role. So he has, you know, his eyes over things like the academy, recruitment, facilities, and the board, and so on. And he's let me pretty much manage and get on with the coaching and performance team, which is what I came here to do. I love working with him. He loves being challenged. We have, you know, confrontations, as we all do. there's a good balance there. Andy can be confident with his coaching team and his performance team that I'm helping to run that for him, and hopefully, you know, that's now the way forward.
Tell me a little bit about your personal coaching philosophy. I know you introduced the blitz defensive system, and there was quite a significant spotlight on that when it first came in.
Yeah, it's high risk, high reward. That's why. No, so I've been influenced by my PE teacher, the late John Bevan. He was a British Lion. He died while I was in school of leukemia. He was the Welsh coach at the time. People like him, my dad, you know, and going to Loughborough University and learning about core values and core games, invasion, territory, possession, you know, those sort of things have stuck with me. And in terms of my philosophy, it's always been an offensive one. It's been sending numbers at the line. You know, one of the mottos I tell the players is, you know, take more satisfaction out of putting somebody else in space or putting somebody else in for a try than actually scoring it yourself. You know, it's a team sport. Those teamship things are very important to me. So, you know, I like to attack, you know, with numbers, you know, with pace. I'd like us to attack both sides of the ruck. I'd like to play quite adventurous and go forward, you know. And I think that's the same for defence, you know, and that's where the blitz comes in. It's about being aggressive, about going forward, taking space, knocking people down, gaining yards, regaining the ball, playing turnover. And yeah, it's high risk, high reward. You know, I say to the players all the time, we're 100% right or 100% wrong, and we can't have any 60-50s, if that makes any sense.
How much of a challenge is it you're coming into games 9 times out of 10, you're winning with a bonus point quite comfortably. The risk then is that you go into the playoffs perhaps half-baked, and then you play your one game at the end of the season that matters, and you perhaps haven't had that intensity or that pressure. How can you create that pressure for guys in games where it might not necessarily be there from the opposition?
Well, there's only so much you can go bashing the hell out of each other in training. You know, you have to change up the training environment. I think we've got big plans post-Christmas to do a lot of quite different team building stuff to put the boys in awkward situations. They don't know that yet, but Mark Bennett coming in has been a different test of character for them. It's a little bit back to basics, but it's fundamentally what we needed here at Bristol, and we will be the fittest, if not equally the fittest team at the end of the season, and I can guarantee you that, and he will. But also it's about putting them in higher intensity situations. We've gone down and trained at Bath and matched them in terms of a physical training session. We've recently been to Kingsland to train with Gloucester. We're looking to do more of that so that we are testing ourselves at a higher level of opposition and a higher level of intensity. So I think that's happened with the A team this year. You know, we've played the United in the A League, and there's been a certain raising of the bar for that group of players rather than some of the fixtures they were facing last year. And we've seen the improvement in that. They've really competed. And the same for the so-called championship team, or that group, that squad. It's important to take them to those Premiership clubs to train and have that environment to pitch ourselves and test ourselves where we are. So that's about as much as we can do, other than, I don't know, enter the Super 14 or something, I don't know.
Just finally, the support at Ashton Gate, we can't go without talking about it. It's been well documented, but it really does underline the passion for rugby in the city, and for someone whose primary concern is the performance of the players, it must make such a huge difference to be able to send them out in front of crowds of 7,000-8,000.
People don't get this too much, and they don't realise the difference it makes. You know, there are certain animals in your playing squad who need to want to play in front of an atmosphere. They're used to it. You know, some people are used to playing in front of 20-30,000. Ryan Jones, Wales' most capped ever captain, is used to playing in front of 80,000, you know, at home, leading the team out. So I'm not saying that's the be all and end all of everything, but it makes a huge difference. You know, to inspire the team, like turning up, you're warming up and you're seeing the crowd filling in, and by the start of the game you're seeing 7,000-8,000 on a Sunday afternoon or a Friday night. At the level we're playing at the moment, it's really intangible in terms of how you measure it, but it makes that little 1-2% difference, not just to our team but the opposition, who are used to playing in front of less than 1,000 people. You know, it can intimidate them. And I've seen that already at Ashton Gate, and it reminds me very much of my time at the Ospreys, where the Ospreys were coming up and Swansea City were coming up, and the move to the Liberty Stadium, the new Desso pitch. And it was no surprise that the crowd started getting bigger, the excitement, the enthusiasm, the performance, the attraction of better players came to fruition, and success mirrored on both clubs. With the Ospreys winning titles and then Swansea City going all the way to promotion, the Premiership. It has very much the same feel for me, and excuse me, that's something I want to be part of again. I can see happening, I can visualise it in the future, and one that we all should buy into.